Good morning and welcome to the 2023 External Civil Rights Training. My name is Heather Christensen. I am the Title VI and ADA Program Administrator for the Civil Rights Division. Today we're going to talk about Title VI Non-Discrimination and Americans with Disabilities, or the ADA program. So our learning objectives today, at the end of the training, we are going to define Title VI in the ADA, and we're going to explain what the FHWA does and your role at the DOT, and recognize what the complaint process is. So we are going to have a test at the very end, and I want you to keep in mind that anything that I denote in red is something that you'll probably have to remember for the test later on. So just keep that in mind. So what is Title VI? Title VI was enacted as a part of a landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964. Again, anything denoted in red, you'll probably have to remember for the test. So I would just keep that in mind. It prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, and national origin in programs and activities receiving federal financial assistance. So no person in the United States shall, on the grounds of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation in, denied benefits of, subject to discrimination under any program, activity receiving federal financial assistance. So it applies to all persons in the United States. And this umbrella is a good representation of what Title VI covers regarding financial assistance. So if you receive any sort of financial assistance from the federal government, you're going to be covered under these Title VI laws. So it's a very big umbrella, and it's important to understand that it covers all of these things. So the ADA, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the LEP, which is Executive Order 13166, which is limited English proficiency. So just keep that in mind, that it covers a lot of area. Okay, and now we're going to watch a brief video on the Civil Rights Act and kind of explain what that is.
The 1964 Civil Rights Bill was the most significant piece of legislation in 20th century U.S. history. Systematic racial prejudice was the greatest stain on America's reputation, and the '64 bill did much to remove it. With its passing, the federal government upheld substantial laws against racial discrimination and paved the way for a full redress of a damaging problem. After the American Civil War and the first Reconstruction, the ex-Confederate states relapsed into segregation. A network of racist fiats termed Jim Crow laws saw that public facilities, washrooms, water fountains, hotels were segregated. The justice system overwhelmingly favored whites, and jobs were limited to the menial. In the South, segregation founded on the separate but equal doctrine established in Plessy v. Ferguson 1898 meant that blacks were confined to second-class status. This was mirrored by de facto segregation in the North. Although not legally inferior, Northern blacks were not able to access good quality housing or jobs. In response, CR advocacy groups were formed throughout the early 20th century. The Big Four were the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, formed in 1909, the Congress of Racial Equality, formed in 1942, Southern Christian Leadership Conference, formed in 1957, and the Student Nonviolent Coordination Committee, formed in 1960. Each lobbied the government, and together they coordinated protests. The federal government did little in response. Southern politicians vetoed any attempts to pass legislation. Blacks didn't have the ability to wield their vote in protest, and the ex-Confederate South was uniformly opposed to racial advancement. President Roosevelt had maintained popularity among low-income blacks with his New Deal policies. And President Truman desegregated the Army in 1948, but little was done to improve the lot of the average black citizen. A few racial incidents, such as the murder of Emmett Till, the aborted registration of Autherine Lucy at Alabama University, and the Montgomery bus boycott, had given the issue some exposure in the North, but ignorance and inertia of modern whites continued to be an issue. In 1954, the separate but equal doctrine was rejected by the Supreme Court in Brown v. Board of Education. Its unanimous ruling that segregated public schools were inherently unequal mandated the federal government to desegregate schools, paving the way for a series of crises that would expose Southern prejudice. The first came in 1957, when President Truman sought to integrate Little Rock High School in Arkansas. He deployed federal troops when Governor Orville Faubus opposed the ruling and ultimately saw that the school was integrated. The trend continued under the Kennedy administration. Throughout the early 1960s, a number of racial crises put pressure on the administration to do something significant. In the Freedom Rides of April 1961, two groups of activists tested the Supreme Court ruling that all interstate travel facilities must be desegregated by riding buses throughout several southern states. They were met in Anniston, Birmingham, and Montgomery by groups of white supremacists. Their buses were burned, and the activists were savagely beaten. There was clear collaboration between the police and the KKK, and the Kennedy administration's actions were limited to damage control. In early 1961, James Meredith, a black World War II veteran, had his application to study at the University of Mississippi rejected purely on racial grounds. The Kennedy administration intervened on Meredith's behalf, but Mississippi Governor Ross Barnett calculated that it was politically impossible for him to accept the ruling. Tensions culminated in a standoff between U.S. Marshals and a racist mob outside the university on September 30th. Nearly 100 marshals were injured, but the administration was credited with calmly fulfilling its promise. JFK had always refused to denounce racist actions in moral terms, taking the position that he was merely following the letter of the law. However, protests in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963 proved seminal. Project C was a protest designed to provoke a violent reaction from the city's thuggish police commissioner, Eugene Bull Connor. Connor craved publicity and was prepared to use significant force in suppressing the protests. A march on the city hall saw police clash with protesters, many of whom were children. The use of dogs and fire hoses produced horrific scenes that created an international outcry and spawned a sequence of national protests. Introducing legislation was now a viable political proposition. Before Birmingham, the lack of national awareness and feeling for the issue had meant the Southern caucus could dominate discussions of race. But now, JFK had a popular mandate to pursue legislation. This he did, giving a national address that called for legislation because it is right. His unprecedented moral tone committed the federal government to realizing substantive legislation. The legislation itself was remarkably broad. Emulating the 1875 Civil Rights Act, it included a public accommodations title, Title II, that outlawed discrimination in access to public facilities, as well as reaffirming and protecting the universal right to vote. It also strengthened both the Attorney General's authority to intervene in school desegregation cases and provisions against discrimination in federally funded institutions. JFK was assassinated before the bill could make substantial progress. It had passed the Judiciary Committee, but languished in the Senate Finance Committee, headed by arch-segregationist Harry Byrd. The assassination was initially considered a hammer blow for the cause. Vice President Lyndon Johnson, who was a member of the Southern Caucus, had a poor voting record on civil rights and seemingly didn't have the political security to pursue such a risky initiative. However, Johnson was emotionally committed to advancing civil rights. In his first address to Congress as president, Johnson said, "No memorial oration or eulogy could more eloquently honor President Kennedy's memory than the earliest passage of the Civil Rights Bill for which he fought so long." Johnson recognized that JFK's substantial income tax cut was hampering the Civil Rights Bill's progress. Johnson dislodged the tax bill by promising Harry Byrd that he would bring the national budget in below $100 billion. In doing so, he cleared the way for the Civil Rights Act, which passed the Rules Committee and House of Representatives with relative ease. The Senate was a different story. A Southern bloc of 18 Southern Democrats and one Republican, led by Richard Russell, was resolved to destroy the bill. Using Vice President Hubert Humphrey as a proxy, Johnson cajoled congressmen and senators into backing the bill. He crucially got Everett Dirksen and his votes on side, and in doing so won enough votes to pass a cloture vote. Dirksen was not emotionally committed to civil rights reform, but he was compelled to accept the political necessities that underpinned it, and his vote saw a new supportive majority formed. The bill passed the Senate 77-23 and was signed into law on July 2, 1964. Although the bill didn't produce significant immediate improvements in the lives of Black Americans, it gave the federal government the tools to expunge systemic prejudice. And, along with the 1965 Voting Rights Bill, which reinforced some of the '64 bill's provisions, saw that the federal government was broadly supportive of equality and justice.
So the ADA, moving on, is the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it was signed by President Bush in July of 1990. So it does protect 3 categories of individuals. And I want you guys to keep in mind, it's important that you take into account mental impairment. Sometimes we forget about disabilities that we can't see. And if it's not, lots of disabilities are things that you don't know are there. So if someone gets out of a vehicle and they don't have a limp, or you don't see them having a cast on, does that mean that they don't have a disability? Definitely not. So keep that in mind, that lots of people have disabilities, especially disabilities that you can't see, including mental impairment. So we're gonna watch a few videos on the ADA. The first one is what is the ADA, and the second one is just some disability sensitivity training.
Oh, hello there. Have you heard of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA? Yeah, the ADA is a law that prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities. This law ensures that people with disabilities are able to fully enjoy all aspects of society. Things such as employment, private business, state and local government organizations, public accommodations and services. The ADA defines a person with a disability as someone who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits one or more major life activities, or a record of such an impairment. For example, a person who has had cancer but is now cured or in remission, or being regarded as having such an impairment. For example, a person with burn scars who's not impaired in any way, but is discriminated against because someone assumed they were impaired. Major life activities are things that most people can do with little or no difficulty, such as caring for oneself, seeing, hearing, eating, walking, speaking, learning, communicating, and working. Major life activities also include the operation of a major bodily function. These are things like the functions in our organ systems. The ADA's definition of a person with a disability is meant to be broad. Each person is different, and disabilities vary from person to person. Another thing to note is that the ADA still applies even if medication or medical equipment can be used to relieve the effects of a disability. Not all disabilities are alike, and some are more obvious than others. For example, someone who uses a walker or a wheelchair has a visible disability. But there are also disabilities that can be difficult to see, such as asthma, depression, or diabetes. Although these disabilities are not always obvious, they still have a way of limiting daily activities.
Scout, come here, boy.
Whoop, looks like I better go. Thanks for stopping by.
Good morning, Bob.
Morning there, big man. Morning, Alice!
There's no need to be awkward.
Poor Bob. Like so many of us, he just doesn't know how to interact with people with disabilities.
It's pretty easy, really. People with disabilities are people first.
We need the same things that every person needs, like respect.
Good morning, everyone.
Attention! Okay. Maybe we need to be more specific.
The easiest way to show respect is to focus on the person, not the disability. It's okay. You'll get the hang of it.
One easy way to focus on the person is to watch the person signing and not their interpreter.
Or their companion.
It's really cool that you'd like to help, but do us both a favor and please ask me first. What you think might be helping?
I got you.
Wait, ah! Oh no, might actually not.
If you'd like to offer me help, let me hold on to your elbow. Don't take mine.
Hey, would you like to take my arm?
Sure.
Assistive devices help us to live our lives. They're really important and really personal.
Grabbing them only makes it weird for everyone.
What?
Please only touch our devices and service animals if we've given you permission. And don't take it personally if I ask you not to. Remember that my service animal helps me all the time. Neither of us would like it if we were separated.
Remember, we make our own decisions. We sign documents, vote, volunteer, work, and pay taxes.
We get married.
So don't underestimate me just because I have a great smile.
Just because I'm blind.
May I help you?
Does not mean I'm deaf.
Just because I'm deaf doesn't mean I'm blind.
And just because I use a wheelchair doesn't mean that I can't sweep you off your feet.
So take a deep breath, relax. We don't bite.
Unless we're really hungry.
Hello there, ladies. How are you?
Hello. And if you're not sure what to do, just ask.
Hi, would you still like to see a menu?
No thanks, but can you please read it to me?
Sure, definitely.
Just treat us the way you would want to be treated, and we'll all be okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Alice.
Morning.
Awkward no more. Nice job, Bob. Go forth and be human.
There's no need to be awkward.
All right, so the purpose of the ADA and Title VI is to make sure that funds are not spent in a manner that encourages, subsidizes, or results in discrimination of any kind. So the DOT's requirements when it comes to Title VI, every year we submit the implementation plan and the goals and accomplishments report to be approved by the FHWA. We also have subrecipient reviews. So each state agency, basically the FHWA picks what they want to review, and then it is reviewed with us. And we do that annually with them. Another requirement that we have is the NDDOT's public involvement plan. So it is a requirement to protect the public interest. It ensures that everyone has the opportunity to comment on transportation programs and activities that affect their community. And we do collect this data, and it is shared in a Title VI specialist Excel spreadsheet that we have, which comes out yearly. So the annual data starts January 1 through the end of that year. If you'd like more information, or if you need information on our data, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. There is also instructions for the data, or instructions for the survey, excuse me. And I know that's also been updated this year. So keep that in mind. If you don't have the updated form, make sure that you download it, and it is on our website. We also have language services, and if you'll notice, the language link is in red at the top. So I think you're going to have to remember that if you use language services or interpreter services, you want to remember the company language link. So on MyDOT, this is where you're going to find this resource, it's under LEP resources, and it says access to language link interpreter services. And that's going to give you the 1-888 number. It's a PDF. You can download it. And then it also has your division number. So like legal division, divisions and districts, and then it has driver's license. So make sure you pick out the right division number for you to use. Now, this is for if you need interpreter services. We have to provide meaningful access to people who don't speak English very well. So if you need those, don't worry about the cost. Make sure that you always use this language link services. It is available on MyDOT under civil rights. And if you need more about this, please look in MyDOT or just send me an email and I'll send you the information right away. Okay, and this is a request for reasonable accommodations form. So if someone needs an interpreter for another reason or something else besides a telephonic interpreter, they're going to want to fill out one of these forms. It's SFN 60135. So on the top, they would just fill out their name and what type of event they need it for. And then the part 2 is LEP. So that would be if they need something like written or like if they need a form or a document. And part 2 is also like for accommodations if they need, or excuse me, part 3 is for accommodations for a disability. So make sure that you know where this form is. So it's 60135. And if you need it, please give this form out. And this goes right back to us at the Civil Rights Division. So, and if you have any questions about this form, please let me know. I'd be happy to send it to you or whatever you need. So also a requirement for us at the DOT is assurances. So you have to have assurances A&E for all of your contracts and tiers. So this is just what all of those appendixes are. So we have A through E, but A and E are a requirement on all of your contracts. So if you're a person who puts together contracts or you look at contracts, make sure that you always have A and E specifically, because E is non-discrimination authorities. A is sanctions for non-compliance. So so compliance oversight. So speaking about that, the project engineer should be cognizant of contractual requirements and monitor the contractor for compliance. So these are very broad, so make sure nothing that your employees say or do could be construed as unfair, unequal, or discriminatory. Very important. So intentional discrimination is where people in a protected class are deliberately treated differently. This is the most common type of discrimination. An example would be an employer giving a certain test to all of the women who apply for a job, but none of the men. So make sure that you're always cognizant of what's going on around you. Title VI, compliance oversight, consequences could be suspension or termination of federal financial assistance and refusal to grant or continue federal financial assistance. So what do you do if you see non-compliance? You would definitely notify your ADE or whoever oversees that project, or you would go up your chain of command. So if the ADE cannot remedy the situation, then they will contact the district engineer who has the authority to stop the project if necessary. So if non-compliance with any provision is even suspected, the NDDOT, city, county, or consultant PE should notify the ADE immediately. Okay, and a civil rights complaint refers to unlawful, unfair, unequal treatment or impact to an individual or group based on certain defining characteristics. So you have the right to file a complaint with any of the following. Any of those. So NDDOT, FHWA, FTA, USDOT, or USDOJ. And you'll notice you have 180 calendar days. So I would keep in mind this 180 calendar days to file a complaint unless the filing date is extended by the FHWA. So this is where the NDDOT's complaint forms are. We have it in English and in Spanish. And you can find a complaint form at the FHWA, FTA. All of these sites have a complaint form, including ours, and ours is also in Spanish. So this is what that looks like. It's SFN 51795. And like it says on the bottom, it's not accepted without a signature and a date. So you have to put your name on it. So this is a little bit of a difference. There is a little bit of a difference, excuse me, between an FHWA complaint process and an FTA or DOT complaint. So this is the FHWA. They receive the complaint, or the member of the public. We receive the complaint after that. We give it to the FHWA, and then they give it to their headquarters. And at the FTA or the complaint is received by a member of the public. The complaint is sent to us, and then we send it to our local government division, and the FTA are also notified of the complaint. So it's a little bit of a different process, but just something good to know. Okay, what do you do when you receive a report of discriminatory activity? So be aware of behavior and language on your job site. Set a good example on the project for your coworkers and others who may be present. A good rule of thumb is if it's questionable, don't say it or do it or bring it. If you have a computer handy, type a quick note or a Word document, or if you have your phone handy. Everybody has a note app on their phone. Type it out real quick. If you only have a phone, type a note so you don't forget. If something like that occurs, go to the person who you heard or saw it directly and have a conversation with them about what they're comfortable sharing. So step one, document. It's the 5 W's of English when you were a kid. Who, what, when, where, why, how. Okay, keep in mind, anybody has the right to file a complaint. Step two, go to the project manager or the chain of command to report the violation. And step three, if the complaint is something your company or firm can remedy, we would encourage that. So examples of external complaints: making a negative or derogatory comment regarding minorities on a work site, that is a valid complaint. Commenting on a person's age or sex as they pass by a work site, that is also a valid complaint. An ADA complaint, hiring an authority on the job saying they won't hire, the hiring authority on the job saying they won't hire someone because of their disability. A coworker talking about how much they don't like another coworker because of their disability. And this is for transit only. Vehicle operators not announcing stops or identifying their routes. Remember, if you find the language offensive, other people probably do also, regardless of who it is about. Remember, emails and instant messaging, even on work phones, signs or stickers, t-shirt phrases, something intentional is said or done. Remember your protected classes: age, race, color, national origin, sex, disability, religion. So these are not complaints. Like I said before, any anonymous complaint, inquiry seeking advice or information, a question is not a complaint. And newspaper articles or opinions are not complaints. An ADA, what is not a complaint is how someone drives, not serving a particular location or limited evening or weekend service. That's not a valid complaint either. So I want you guys to remember that Title VI and non-discrimination, it saturates all divisions of the DOT. So if you would like more information about that, make sure that you look at our implementation plan. Go to our website, look at the goals and accomplishments report, and you'll see that civil rights and Title VI does touch every division of the DOT. And it's more moral and ethical, like it said in the video, to treat others like you would want to be treated, the golden rule. And if you think there's something wrong, it probably is. So if you guys have any questions about anything, please remember that we're not here to do anything else other than help you and assist you with the project. So if you have any questions, here's my contact information and my phone number. And at the end, I will give you guys more instructions on the test. So next is Daniel Weaver, and he will be going through contract compliance. So
good morning. My name is Daniel Weaver. I'm one of the Civil Rights Program Administrators here at the North Dakota Department of Transportation. My contact information is listed on the last slide of each presentation. Today I will be providing training on contract compliance, labor compliance, and then I'll finish up and be the last presenter today, and I'll be training on LCP Tracker. The first topic that I will cover is contract compliance. Today's training topics: contractor compliance requirements, contract special provisions, FHWA 1273, compliance oversight, project selection criteria, district responsibilities, pre-construction conference form, CRD checklist, conformance requests, bulletin boards, EO interviews, non-segregated facilities, bathroom facilities, monthly EEO report, compliance issues, Title VII internal EEO program. So NDDOT responsibilities regarding contractor compliance. Under 23 CFR 230 Subpart D, North Dakota Department of Transportation is responsible for assuring contractor compliance with the requirements of federal aid highway construction contracts, including equal employment opportunity, on-the-job training, disadvantaged business enterprise program, Title VI and non-discrimination, and labor compliance responsibilities. Federally funded highway construction contract requirements. FHWA 1273 must be incorporated in all tiers of subcontracts and was updated in 2022 to include all protected classes of employees. It covers a variety of topics, and I will discuss later in the training. EO affirmative action requirements are percentages of employee participation on federally funded highway projects, which are 6.9% for females and varies by county for minority participation. The minority participation requirements are listed in the proposal under the EO affirmative action requirements. Appendix A and E of the Title VI assurances. And lastly, the labor rates that were current when the project was bid and will stay with the project until it is completed. For example, a multi-year project will keep the wage decision in which was bid on and not current rates, which might be potentially higher. Paper copies of payrolls will not be accepted, and sole use of LCP Tracker for submitting certified payroll will be required. This is something that I'm going to be talking about, and it's like a theme of my training over the, my three trainings. But payrolls are required to be submitted on a weekly basis by contractors and submitted and subcontractors working on the project and reviewed by project staff weekly. All manuals have been updated to reflect this process change. Progress has been made in regards to the weekly submission and verification of payrolls, but there is still room for improvement. Contract special provisions. All federal aid highway construction contracts should contain the following special provisions relative to the equal employment responsibilities of the contractors. FHWA 1273 include requirements not to discriminate and to take affirmative action to assure equal employment opportunity as required by Civil Rights Act of 1964. Incorporates by reference the requirements of 49 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 26, approved DBE program. Non-discrimination provisions of FHWA 1273 requires the contractor to ensure that it has made every good faith effort to provide equal opportunity with respect to all of its terms and conditions of employment and in their review of activities under the contract. Compliance oversight. Enforcement responsibilities are vested with the North Dakota Department of Transportation, which ultimately falls on the shoulders of the project engineers and assistant district engineers, including projects led by consultant staff. If non-compliance with any provision is suspected, the project engineer should notify the assistant district engineer immediately. The ADE should consult with the Civil Rights Division for a possible course of action. Complaints of discrimination can surface at any time. If anyone on the project observes conduct or activity of a discriminatory nature, or is approached by an employee of the prime contractor or a subcontractor with a complaint of discrimination, the assistant district engineer and the Civil Rights Division should be notified immediately. Project selection. Each year, the North Dakota Department of Transportation selects approximately 10 projects for an in-depth review. The following are some of the basic criteria for selection. Each project should have a value of $1 million or more, which was changed as a result of the program review, which was conducted by Federal Highway, which will increase the amount of projects and contractors that could be potentially selected for the contractor compliance review program. The previous amount was set at $3 million or more. Each project selected should have DBE and OJT requirements. And if there are any labor or EEO complaints against a contractor during the last review, those contractors will be reviewed again. I will attempt to schedule at least one contractor compliance review per district if possible. Reviews must be conducted prior to or at peak employment. Must have at a minimum 3 weeks of certified payroll entered into LCB Tracker. The reason for conducting the review at peak employment and having a sufficient amount of certified payroll submitted is that the payrolls are what LCB Tracker uses to pull information to generate some of the reports that are used to monitor the contractor, such as percentages of minority and female participation on a project, as well as what craft they were working in. Reviews should be scheduled with sufficient time for the contractor to prepare and submit all requirements. The contractor compliance reviews will be completed prior to 1 October. If this date is not attainable, I will contact FHWA and ask for an extension. Desk audits of submitted paperwork will be reviewed prior to the final exit interview. All exit interviews will be conducted via Teams. Projects highlighted for review. I am completed with selecting projects for this construction season and will reach out to the ADEs for concurrence. The following are some of the steps taken to select projects as part of the contractor compliance review program. Assistant district engineers are contacted for concurrence on selected projects or possible other projects that would better meet the criteria for selection. Contractors are notified via phone conference and also by letter addressed to company president or the chief executive officer, as well as the equal opportunity officer. This usually takes place the last part of March or early April. Notifications should take place prior to the pre-construction conference, but sometimes doesn't happen due to varying factors. Scheduled bid openings, the change of awarded projects, or the scope of the work changes. And lastly, all parties involved should voice concerns whether a project should be scheduled for a review. Assistant District Engineer responsibilities. Responsible for conducting labor and EEO compliance job site interviews. Weekly verification and acceptance of certified payrolls and craft selection. Complete bulletin board review form and photos and upload those to CARS. Inspect project worksite for discriminatory behavior and segregated facilities. Pre-construction conference form. The pre-construction conference form was updated recently with all up-to-date civil rights information. One of the items of note that I would like to highlight is the requirement for payrolls to be submitted and reviewed by project staff on a weekly basis, which is located in the first page of the form under Read to Contractor. I also updated all the bulletin board posters and then the links for each of those posters where they're located on FHWA's website. Review with the contractor in depth what items will be inspected during the contractor compliance review if the project was selected, ensuring fair notice is given. Discuss, if there are any gray areas for coverage of Davis-Bacon wages regarding specific work and what craft should be used. Emphasize the importance of following DBE special provisions. Multi-tiered payrolls. All contractors and subcontractors are responsible for submitting payrolls and LCP tracker weekly and being accepted by project staff on a weekly basis. Ensure that contractors are classifying their employees properly. And this is just the first page of the pre-construction conference form. The revision date is 3/2023. CRD checklist. The CRD checklist is an excellent resource to use to make sure all civil rights requirements have been met. Intended as a tool for both district and consultant engineers on federally funded highway construction projects, should be provided to the individual that will be monitoring the civil rights requirements on a project at the beginning of the project, and is intended to be a working document throughout the life of the project. Before a project can be closed, all items on this checklist must be verified for completion. Find contractor in-depth review. So verify the following items to make sure the contractor is compliant during a contractor compliance review. Bulletin board is up to date with all required posters and documents. Bulletin board review form is uploaded to CARS. The form should be completed at the beginning of the project and no less than 15 days prior to the contractor compliance review. Payrolls have been all submitted and accepted by project staff. Payrolls are required to be submitted and accepted by project staff weekly. In-depth labor compliance interviews are completed and reconciled in LCP Tracker. And I'll go over that more in depth when I go over my LCP Tracker training. Facilities are free of segregation and no other compliance issues exist. Bulletin boards. So I updated all the bulletin boards, the DOT 3350, 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and 3 of 3. And I also created a fourth poster, which doesn't have a DOT number, but it's the state of North Dakota requirements. And that contains the minimum wage and work condition summary, and also the unemployment insurance poster. DBRA wage rate decision is found in the contract. The wage decision that was current when the project was bid was awarded will be the wage decision used for the life of the project. The contractor's discrimination complaint procedure, the sample is attached to the pre-construction conference form. Some contractors and bulletin boards. When a subcontractor is on a federal aid highway construction project or the site of work for less than 1 week, 7 calendar days, or when a subcontractor is extremely mobile on a federal aid highway construction project or the site of work, such as a pavement marker project or a guardrail installation or fencing, the subcontractor will not be required to provide a project site bulletin board if the subcontractor's home office is located in North Dakota. The subcontractor maintains a bulletin board at their home office home office located in an area readily accessible to all employees, applicants for employment, and other interested parties. The bulletin board contains all of the required notices and posters. The subcontractor provides documentation that their employees are required to check in at the home office on a daily or weekly basis and do so. The subcontractor's employees know where the bulletin board is located. And then as a reminder, this is the new posters that I had updated. This is the number 1 on the left-hand side, number 2 on the right, and then number 3. And as I had mentioned, the last poster is the requirements for the state of North Dakota. And this is SFN 60547. And as a reminder, please use this particular form that's updated with a revision of 7/2022. This is the one that I had updated last year. And expect bulletin board within 15 days of work commencing on the project should also be done immediately prior to an in-depth contractor compliance review. EEO interviews, labor and compliance and EEO contractor compliance job site in-depth interviews must be conducted on those projects scheduled for contractor compliance reviews. ADEs and project engineers will receive prior notification of scheduled compliance reviews. If mobile devices are not available, completed interviews must be uploaded to LCP Tracker using the e-Documents tab. When conducting interviews, please use a good cross-section of the prime contractor's employees. Criteria to consider: race, sex, job classification, and age. At a minimum, 1 minority, 1 non-minority, 1 female should be interviewed. Bona fide owner-operators of trucks should not be interviewed. All questions should be answered to the best of the ability of the employee and kept confidential, and follow-up data obtained. Use interpreter services if required, and if an interviewee reports suspected discrimination, contact the ADE immediately, and a proper investigation will follow. This is just the interview status, which like I mentioned, we'll go over later in the LCP Tracker portion of my training. Non-segregated facilities. The project site must be inspected to ensure that the working conditions in employee facilities do not indicate discriminatory treatment of project personnel, and that the contractor does not maintain segregated facilities. Examples are waiting rooms, work areas, restrooms, and eating areas. Bathroom facilities. The bathroom facility must be no more than 10 minutes generally walking from a job site. For flaggers, the contractor must have a means of communication for relief within a reasonable amount of time. The monthly EEO project inspection report must be submitted by the 10th day of each month and uploaded to CARS for all active federal aid highway construction projects. Compliance issues. So all project managers may come into contact with compliance issues over the course of a project. DBE, you may have an issue with an unfulfilled obligation, or you have other concerns. Labor compliance, you have a misclassified employee, missing payrolls or incorrect payrolls, no bulletin board or missing required posters, harassment or discrimination complaint. You either witness harassment or a worker on site complains about harassment. Issues regarding harassment never go away by themselves. Address issue in a straightforward way. Call Civil Rights Division and document everything. Remember that everyone on the site, including you and your staff, may become victims of harassment. Title VII Internal Equal Employment Opportunity Program. So protects employees from discrimination and harassment in all phases of employment, ensures recruitment and selection of regular and temporary employees is discrimination-free, and that the workplace is free of discrimination, complaint, and investigation procedures. Signed assurances, EEO training for all employees, and then submit annual goals and accomplishment reports to FHWA. And as a reminder, the contractors that work on our federally funded highway construction projects are extension of the NDDOT because they work for us, so they really fall underneath this program also. And here's my contact information, as I mentioned earlier. So the next topic I will cover is labor compliance. Training topics: Davis-Bacon and related acts, site of work, burden of proof, trucking operations and DBRA, owner-operator of trucks, business owners, payroll requirements, job classifications, specific craft issues, conformances, investigations, complaint procedures, Davis-Bacon complaint form. Davis-Bacon and related acts. The Davis-Bacon Act requires the payment of prevailing wages and fringe benefits as determined by the U.S. Department of Labor to all laborers and mechanics working on the site of federal government construction projects in excess of $2,000. Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act. The Contract Work Hours and Safety Standards Act requires payment at time and 1/2 of the basic hourly rate of pay for overtime over 40 hours in any 7-day work week worked on a covered project. The Copeland Act. The Copeland Anti-Kickback Act makes it a crime for anyone to require any laborer or mechanic employed on a federally funded project to pay back any part of his or her wages. In addition, the Act prohibits any deductions from pay other than those specifically listed as permissible. The Copeland Act also requires the contractors and subcontractors at all tiers submit weekly certified payroll. Site of work. NDDOT has defined the terms as any tool yard, fabrication plant, job headquarters, material supply source, such as a borrow pit, stockpile site, concrete or asphalt batch plant whose boundary is located within 1/2 mile of the closest right-of-way boundary to the federal aid highway construction project. The distance is measured at 1/2 mile from the boundary to the tool yard, fabrication plant, etc., to the closest boundary, project boundary, as the crow flies, not to the middle of the project. And then as a note, the Department of Labor has held the rule that each inquiry into site of work in relation to paying employees Davis-Bacon wages will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis, and that the half-mile rule might not necessarily apply in every case. Burden of proof. When USDOL investigates, it assumes that the contractor must prove they followed Davis-Bacon and related laws. If there is a conflict between versions of events and no evidence, the contractor will potentially lose. Remind all contractors to keep records of Davis-Bacon time cards, pay stubs, haul sheets, etc. Ultimate responsibility is with the prime contractor. Never discuss Davis-Bacon issues without prime contractors being present, party to the discussion. Truck operations. Pay special attention to payrolls when second and third tier subcontractors are being used on payrolls. We have had issues with these types of agreements in the past, leading to no payroll submitted. Even though these contractors might be second and third tier subs, they are required to submit payrolls if they are not owner-operators on a weekly basis and accepted by project staff. Highly encourage subcontractors to use a standard written contract explaining details of the work and expectations. Examples: if this project is a federally funded project, and if so, will require DBRA wages. Handshake agreements don't work and is one of the many reasons for subcontractors either not filing payroll or submitting payroll late because there was a misunderstanding from the beginning if the project is required to pay Davis-Bacon prevailing wages to their employees. Prime contractor is overall responsible. If payrolls are not submitted, progress payments can potentially be placed on hold. Is this a legitimate leasing agreement? The driver is leasing from the company they are hauling for is likely not a legitimate leasing agreement. Use care if it looks like owner-operator status is being falsified. Truck drivers are not covered under DBRA in the following instances: material delivery truck drivers while off the site of work, drivers of a contractor or subcontractor traveling between a DBRA project and a commercial supply facility while off the site of work. Time spent on the site of the work is de minimis, only a few minutes at a time to pick up or drop off supplies. Situations where a driver's time is likely to exceed de minimis. A borrow pit, a stockpile site, etc., located beyond a half-mile from the project site boundaries, but close enough to cause the truck drivers less time and travel and more time on the site of work. A borrow pit, stockpile pit, etc., within the half-mile project boundaries and was open for public sale within the last 12 months the project was let to contract, not awarded, making it a commercial site. Davis-Bacon Manual is a good source of reference when questions are posed regarding whether DBRA prevailing wages are being paid to truck drivers. Time issues for truckers. For Davis-Bacon purposes, an employee's time starts the moment the employee reaches the site of work. This includes, but is not limited to, checking in to get instructions for the day, attending weekly EO and safety toolbox meetings, fueling and other maintenance or mechanical repair, cleaning any part of their equipment or trucks, and all time spent waiting. Examples for flagger or pilot car driver to allow access onto the site of work, weighing at a scale and to be otherwise processed in and out, to load and unload trucks. For Davis-Bacon purposes, an employee's time ends the moment the employee leaves the site of work. This includes all time during the workday where a truck driver leaves the site of work and travels to and from a site that has been determined to not be the site of work. And I just ask that if you want to look into these further or want these notes as a reference, the Davis-Bacon Manual is a good source for time issues for truckers. Business owners. Bona fide owners of businesses are exempt from Davis-Bacon, but should be placed on certified payroll as owners with no wages or financial information entered. When doing so will aid in showing that a contractor filed necessary payroll. A bona fide owner is a person who owns at least 20% interest in the contracting company and is actively engaged in its management. The contractor should input the name, address, and essential information about the owner, but should then check the business owner box under the Add Edit Employees function in LCP Tracker. Any additional questions about business owners and how to input, please have the contractor call me and I will assist. LCP Tracker payroll requirements. All payrolls must be filed electronically through LCP Tracker weekly and verified by project staff on a weekly basis. The prime contractor has the responsibility to assign all subcontractors for a project they are assigned in LCP Tracker. If a subcontractor is not in the system but is registered, prime contractor may input the subcontractor. Each employee must be assigned a job classification and/or classifications from the wage decision for all hours worked. Prime contractors are responsible for the submission of weekly certified payrolls by all tiers of subcontractors. FHWA Form 1273 requires the contractor to submit accurate and complete payrolls to the contracting agency every week for each week contract work is performed. To comply with the requirements contained in 23 CFR 635.118. NDDOT must obtain accurate and complete certified payrolls and statements of compliance from the contractors. As most of you are aware, the Federal Highway Administration reviewed our certified payroll processes last year and noted discrepancies in our acceptance of our payroll process from contractors. All manuals have been updated to reflect the requirement of both contractors and project staff to submit, certify, and accept payroll on a weekly basis. I want to stress to the project staff that it's important to take accurate notes when documenting a prime contractor or subcontractor's time spent on a project site. In either project inspection diaries, notes taken, or observation when on the site of work, and labor compliance interviews. Payrolls are required to be verified and accepted on a weekly basis. If after review of project information, it is found that a contractor or subcontractor has failed to submit weekly certified payrolls, work with the prime contractor on the project to resolve these issues in a timely manner. By reviewing payrolls on a weekly basis, most, if not all, mistakes can be taken care of quickly when memories of the situation is fresh. When a subcontractor has been contacted regarding missing payrolls and has still failed to file payroll, a higher tiered contractor has just cause to withhold payment until payroll is filed. If a prime contractor fails to submit payroll weekly, the project engineer, after consultation with the assistant district engineer or team lead, has just cause to withhold a progress payment until payroll is filed. Guidance regarding the withholding of payments to prime contractors and subcontractors can be found in the North Dakota Standard Specifications for Road and Bridge Construction, Section 109.04, Progressive Payment. Additionally, to ensure that employees are classified properly on payroll, project engineers should conduct random checks of employee classification and document specific types of work he or she is performing and cross-check corresponding payrolls for accuracy. Additionally, labor compliance interviews should also be conducted to verify employee classification. Job classifications. Guidance from USDOL and the Power Equipment Operators Union state any piece of equipment you sit or stand on to drive falls under Power Equipment Operator classification. Electrical work done outside on highway road construction projects is covered by line construction rates rather than electrician rates. When electrical work is performed on or within a commercial building only, such as a rest area, the job classification electrician must be used. Any other electrical work on a federal aid highway construction project in North Dakota is covered by line construction. Groundsman performs basic labor work such as hand excavation, assists in pouring cement, site cleanup, etc., and assists other crafts while they are performing aerial work. A groundsman is essentially a laborer who assists linemen, line operators, and other line workers. A groundsman may move equipment but cannot pull cable, install buried cable, install junction boxes, etc. Note, this is only labor classification that can be used in connection with the line construction work. Apprentices in line construction. Apprentices in line construction must be classified and paid as apprentice linemen with a percentage of journeyman's pay that reflects the apprentice's progress level of training. Additionally, they must be enrolled in the approved Department of Labor Registered Lineman Apprentice Program, regardless if they are also enrolled in an indoor electrical apprentice program. Workers who are installing fiber optic cable or conduits should be classified as a Group 2 labor. Those that are running equipment would be classified as power equipment operators. Dual entries. In some cases, employees might be working in multiple crafts on the same day on a project. For example, he or she is working as a power equipment operator and then a laborer later in the day. It is required to have multiple payroll entries for that employee on that day and recommend taking notes of such instances to ensure that employees are being compensated correctly. In past construction years, we've had issues with employees in specific crafts. The Davis-Bacon Manual is a good source to review if you have any questions regarding classification of employees, but if in doubt, please ask. If the equipment the operator is using paint striping and they write on the piece of equipment, they are acting as a Group 6 operator. Concrete saw operator. The Davis-Bacon wage rate decision for highway construction in North Dakota includes a concrete saw operated under the Power Equipment Operator Group 5 and a concrete saw operator under the Laborer Group 2. An employee who walks behind a concrete saw is considered a Group 2 laborer and must be paid not less than the appropriate Davis-Bacon wage. It does not matter what size the engine is or whether it is self-propelled. Employee who rides on a concrete saw is considered a Group 5 power equipment operator. Skid steer. Skid steer operators should be classified as a Group 5 equipment operator and caught early in the process. As of note, last year, an item came up where a person was operating a skid steer, but he drove a truck on the site of work. That person needs to be paid as a truck driver while he's operating that truck on the site of work. And then when he unloads his skid steer, he needs to be paid as a Group 5 equipment operator for that time he's operating that skid steer. Cement mason finisher. A concrete finisher, also known as a cement mason, is a tradesperson who works with concrete. Duties include placing, finishing, protecting, and repairing concrete used in engineering and construction projects. Please pay attention to when you see contractors classifying their employees as cement masons or concrete finishers. Conformance requests. Conformance requests are submitted when a particular craft is not included in the general wage decision, specifically bridge painters and sandblasters for North Dakota. Department of Labor conformance decisions usually take longer than 30 days. Once I activate a project in LCP tracker, I will input the conformed craft, i.e. bridge painter sandblaster with approved wages. If after a conformance decision is received from DOL and the wage is different than what was inputted before the final decision from DOL, those payrolls will have to be amended. And then this slide just contains the notice that we include in all projects for bridge painters. Notification that just states that this project is going to have bridge painting and sandblasting. They need to submit a conformance. And then on the left-hand side is the actual form that they submit to me, which I will in turn submit to DOL. And what do you do if you have a complaint or you witness harassment? If you have someone approach you with a discrimination or harassment complaint, call the Civil Rights Division. What type of form you use will depend on who the person is. An employee on a project will be treated differently than a member of the public. If you witness behavior that concerns you, report it immediately to your respective assistant district engineer or directly to the Civil Rights Division if this is not possible. If your behavior is ever directed to you, tell your supervising engineer or assistant district engineer immediately. And lastly, this is the Davis-Bacon wage complaint form, SFN 60557. I did update this recently, so in the first page, it's got some different information and made it a little bit more user-friendly. This is my contact information again. Next up with her training is my coworker, Amy Conklin.
Right. My name's Amy Conklin, and I'm the DBE and OJT program administrator in the Civil Rights Division at the DOT. I'm going to go over both of those programs, starting with the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise or DBE program. Oops. My first slide is just sharing some resources. If you're monitoring DBE program requirements on projects, these resources are available to you. The DBE program manager or manual is on our website. That's a good place to start. We also, in the last year or so, created a Civil Rights Division checklist, which is really good to have and review to make sure that you're meeting all the requirements on the project. That's also found online. The DBE special provisions is located in the project proposal or the contract of each federally funded project and also on our website. The DBE participation review packet is the information that was compiled prior to award for the project, and that can be found in FileNet or CARS. The Certification and Compliance System, or B2G Now, sometimes is what it's referred to. That is also a really great resource, and I'll go into more detail about that in my training. And then there's a few forms: the replacement pull request form, DBE weekly tracking report, and the DBE performance commercially useful function certification. Those are the three main DBE related forms that may be used on your project. And please note that to use the most current version of all those forms, they are updated periodically. So go out to the website and download the most current version. If you did have an older version saved to your desktop or something like that, we ask that you use the most current version. And then lastly, you can call or email myself with any questions or concerns regarding DBE requirements. Okay, so to start off, how do I even know what DBEs are on my project, or if they're on my project? The quote unquote old school way to find which DBEs will be working on your project is to view the DBE participation review packet in FileNet or CARS. The first page of this document lists the DBEs the prime contractor committed to using at the time the project was awarded. If you go a couple pages further, there will be a Form C or SFN 52160 for each DBE committed to on the project, and it will list the spec and code for the work they are to perform. If the prime didn't meet their DBE goal at the time of award, there may also be Form Cs for non-DBEs they are using due to bid differential. Those are also important to note so that when the non-DBE on the Form C performs their work, you can ensure it was completed appropriately. In a sense, a non-DBE used in a bid differential should be scrutinized just about as much as a DBE would, because we want to ensure that they are completing the work they committed to, as they were allowed to be used in place of a DBE. Another thing to note, if the prime contractor didn't meet the DBE goal at the time of award, is that good faith efforts follows the prime through the life of the project in that instance. Their good faith efforts documentation, or SFN 60829, is also located in the DBE participation review packet and lists the non-DBEs they intend to use in Part F of that form, as well as the DBEs they committed to. These non-DBEs listed are just regular non-DBEs and not like those used in a bid differential. However, if any work outside of all the information submitted on SFN 60829 is to be completed by anyone other than the prime, they are supposed to show good faith efforts and first solicit that work to DBEs that are certified to do it. If no DBEs are certified to complete that type of work, they do not have to solicit. If no DBEs are interested in performing the work, they may then use a non-DBE. The Certification and Compliance System, or CCS, or sometimes referred to as B2G Now, is also another very useful tool to use in monitoring DBE and non-DBEs on the projects, and should be used in conjunction with the DBE participation review packet. And I will talk more about that in the next few slides. This slide is just an example of why reviewing your projects in CCS to ensure you are aware of the DBEs working on them is important. It lists projects from April 2022 to current that had an increase of DBE participation from the time it was awarded, or the information compiled in the DBE participation review packet, to the time the prime submitted the utilization plan. It represents 20 projects over that time period and an increase of over $7 million in DBE dollars that may not be accounted for if you are solely reviewing the DBE participation review packet. FHWA will not allow us to count any DBE participation where a commercially useful function was not completed. If we were unable to account $7 million in DBE dollars in 1 year due to not knowing they were committed to being used on the project and completing a commercially useful function, that would significantly impact our overall DBE participation and potentially mean we wouldn't meet our goal. Please make it a priority to log into the system at least once a month if you are a DOT project personnel to make sure all DBEs are accounted for and to see if your projects have past due audits or discrepancies, which I will go over next. If you are a consulting engineer, please request a report of your project shortly before they begin work, as consulting engineers do not currently have access to the system. A discrepancy in the system refers to a payment that a prime reported that a sub or supplier disputed or disagreed with. Most of the time, discrepancies are something minor that is easily resolved between the two parties. On the screen is an example from the last year that was resolved between the prime and the sub. The subcontractor private comments line at the bottom of the first box shows why the sub is disputing the payment. They stated they only received $2,804.02. The prime commented back, which is shown in the new prime public comments at the bottom of the slide, that they wrote a check for $2,804.02 on December 27th, and then another check for $800 on December 30th, totaling $3,604.02. The sub confirmed that they received both checks and agreed to the prime's comments and original payment reported, which is identified in red on the final amount agreed to by both parties line. This process can happen before project personnel or even myself notices, because once it is resolved, there is no longer any type of notification of it within the system. The system does still document the whole process though, even though you are not alerted. The discrepancy used as an example on this slide has been resolved. If you were to go into the system, you could still view everything as shown. There is also a report that can be generated that would list all discrepancies ever reported on projects and or during a certain time frame. I'm going to log into the system now and show you how to get that information on your dashboard, some current open discrepancies, and how to pull that report I mentioned. But before I do that, I would like to make it clear that ideally the two parties are able to resolve the discrepancies on their own. If they are unable to do that, the district personnel will need to intervene, and if it is a non-DBE reporting that discrepancy, Doug Peterson in Construction Services would assist, and if it is a DBE, I would assist the district in getting it resolved. So this is what I see when I log into the system. You will not see all of this likely, but the first thing that opens up is called your dashboard or the system dashboard. It says it in the yellow banner at the top. And this is totally personalized to whatever you want to be shown on your dashboard. One thing I want to note to add to your dashboard if you're a district user of the system is this blue contract audits module on the dashboard. That is one thing out of all the things that you can add that I highly suggest you add to your dashboard. And to do that, you would just click personalize at the top left of the screen, and it would be one of these items. It's not available on mine because I already have it on my dashboard, but it would be one of them called contract audits. You would click it and add it to your dashboard. And if you have multiple things, you can change colors and decide where you want them on your dashboard. But that's how you would do it. So on this contract audits module here, the second red line item says discrepancies, and that if there's any discrepancies open within the system, there will be numbers listed next to that word there. And there currently is 6 open discrepancies in the system. And then this module also divides them out to discrepancies that are less than 90 days old, which is the second column here. And the third column is any discrepancies older than 90 days old. Ideally, there would never be discrepancies open within the system that are older than 90 days old, just so you know it would be best to get them resolved if before they hit that column. But I'm going to click this 6, which will show us all open discrepancies within the system. So when you click that number, you may not see anything. So one thing to know, if you don't see anything when you click that number, this box at the top that says show only records assigned to you, if it's checked, you want to uncheck it because the records won't be assigned to you. The records are only assigned to certain program administrators, myself included. That's why I see everything and I don't have to worry about that. But make sure to uncheck that box if you see nothing there, and it should refresh and show you that active discrepancies within the system. So these are the open discrepancies currently within the system. It lists them by date. It has the different audit periods that the discrepancy has been opened in, and I think I talk about it a little bit later, but an audit is basically just a month within a contract. They call it an audit though. And the prime contractor, the contract number, what the discrepant, if there's one or more open discrepancies in that contract, and values and stuff. But we're going to click on just to view one of them so you see what it looks like, the oldest one, which is from September 2022. If I click on that, it will bring me directly to the audit period or the month that the discrepancy was reported in for this contract. So this is the September 2022 audit period on this contract. If I scroll down, it has like the prime payment information at the top, prime information, then it lists all the subcontractors. If you scroll down, the one with the discrepancy will have red discrepancy listed on it. So that's, that's the one that opened a discrepancy. To view it, you will click resolve, which makes you think you're resolving the discrepancy, but you're not, but that's what you have to click to view it. And then similar to the one that I had in the screenshot in the PowerPoint presentation, this will show you any communications between the subcontractor and the prime that's been reported as of yet. So they're just disputing the amount that was originally reported by the prime was $4,587.97. And the sub is saying, no, I was paid $4,288.72. The prime did supply some check information and everything like that. So if the sub disputes what the prime has responded back with, they need to state that. And then if they cannot agree, then the district personnel would need to get involved and resolve this discrepancy for them. And you might have to request proof of payment or canceled checks or whatever. But that process would be done in conjunction with either Doug Peterson in Construction Services or myself. We would help you through that. So that's just an open discrepancy in the system currently, just as a reference as to what they look like. And then that report I talked about that shows where you can pull all discrepancies within a certain time period. You would go to the reporting tab on the left-hand side of the screen and then click full list. And there's a lot of reports in here that if any of them look interesting to you, feel free to look at them. But the discrepancy one is under contracts. And if you scroll down, it is titled reported discrepancies. So if you click that reported discrepancies, you can put in a time period. I'm just going to put in a year ago to today and then click view report. And you can change the status to open, all, or resolved. I'm going to change it to all so it opens all of them. View report. It takes a minute to extract the data. And then it will pull up all that information. So this will list all the discrepancies within that time period that you requested. It is interesting to go back and look at past discrepancies and kind of follow the timeline, see how they were resolved or see how they were handled. And then you can also export this to Excel so that you can manipulate it or view it a lot easier than viewing it within the system. So that's always available if you're just curious about that information. And then other than discrepancies, what should be monitored by DOT project staff in the system is incomplete or past due audits. The term audits, like I said previously, is used throughout the system and refers to a month. Audit sounds bad, but that's just the term they use when referring to a month within the contract. And they use that term because each month is supposed to be reviewed and monitored similar to when something is being audited. Primes can have past due audits where they need to report their payments to the subs or suppliers, and subs or suppliers can have past due audits where they need to either confirm or dispute a payment. It is important to know that primes are required to report zero as a payment in months that the projects may not be active or they're not making any payments. For example, during the winter when they're probably not working on the project, but it's still not completed. They have to keep reporting payments until the project is closed or final payments have been confirmed by the subs. And then subs and suppliers don't confirm zero payments. Those are auto confirmed in the system. So the prime has to report zeros, or it will say it's an incomplete audit if they just are like, well, we're not working on it, so we're not reporting anything. They do have to still log in and report zeros. And there is a functionality in there where if it's during the winter and nobody's being paid, they can mark zero for all subs on the contract. So it's really not that difficult for them. When you add the contract audits module to your dashboard, it provides you a quick glance at not only discrepancies, which I just showed within the system, but also any incomplete, past due, or locked audits. I'm going to bring the system back up again to show you how to get a broad overview of all those items on open contracts in the system. And if you are wanting to review specific projects, you would search the PCN and pull up that contract to view as well. And I will briefly show how to do that also. Again, it's within this blue contract audits module on your dashboard that should be added to your dashboard. And we went over the discrepancies row. The incomplete audits, that's what will show you anything that has past due functions that need to be completed on contracts within the system. And then there's also a row for closeouts or finals, past due audits, and locked audits, which if an audit or a month is locked, that means it's after a certain time period and requires a system administrator to go in and give them a 2-week extension on it so that they can complete it. But just for your information, we're going to look at this incomplete audits row and click the 124 incomplete audits currently within the system. You click that number. Again, if you don't see anything, make sure that the top left checkbox that says show only records assigned to you is unmarked, and it should show you all of them. And then it will just list all contracts that have past due items in the system. And you can download this to an Excel spreadsheet. There's a download link at the top on the right corner. You can change what's shown if you want to show just pending prime. So primes that haven't reported their payments, or if pending subs, confirming or disputing payments. And you can change the audit period and manipulate it however you want. So that's how you would view all these different past due functions within the system on contracts. If you wanted to look up a specific contract and just check on it and make sure that the contractor and the subs are all doing the functions that are required within the contract, you would click the search on the left-hand side and then click contracts. And then I put in the PCN under contract reference number at the very top. I'm going to put in 22207 just as a reference and search. And that will bring up your contract. I should have picked a contract that was tied, because then I could show you if a project is tied and it has multiple PCNs, the utilization plan and all the sub information and all the reporting will be done on the parent PCN, and you'll see the other PCNs in the system, but everything will be under the parent PCN, just to know that. But if you click the PCN here, it will show you the contract. This is like the main contract page. The award amount, how much has been paid, and how much has been paid to DBEs is in the very top left or right hand side of the screen. It has the prime, has the compliance officers, and then to kind of just navigate through the contract, some certain tabs up here that are you can click any of them and view them. Some of them don't have any information, but the good ones to click just to view, get an overview of the contract, is the subs tab, which will list all the subs on the project down here. And then the compliance audit list tab will break out those monthly audits. And if there's any red, which there is red on this specific contract, that means there are items in the contract that need to be completed by either the prime or the sub, and you could click on those and view. So we'll click on August 2022 just to view what hasn't been done for that particular month. And there is anything in red, so this not yet over here in red means that the subs haven't confirmed or opened a discrepancy. They have to do one or the other for each of these payments that have been reported to them. So that's what's needing to be completed. And the primes should be getting a hold of their subs if they see that they're not doing that. They should be getting a hold of them and saying, hey, you need to, this is a contract requirement. You need to go in there and get this cleaned up and up to date. And then the compliance audit summary tab at the top just gives like an overview of each of the subs, what they were contracted for and what they've been paid. If they're a DBE, they'll have these green check marks by them stating that they're DBE certified. This column says certified and the other one says included in goal. So that's how you know if they're a DBE. And then I also want to mention, because like on this specific contract, there are pending items back from August. Go back to the compliance audit list here, which was quite a while ago. We are currently updating the prompt pay special provisions in the contracts to require subcontractors and suppliers to either confirm or open a discrepancy, because that's what we see a lot of the past due actions in the system being, is they haven't done that. Within 30 days of the prime reporting that payment. And if they do not, then we'll be auto confirming it for them. So once that SP is approved and in place, a lot of these older past due actions in the system will be cleared up and hopefully won't have as many. So I just want to mention that as well. So training within the system. There's always both contractor and staff training provided by B2G now, or the system creators of this system. The contractor training is on the login page shown on the slide. It is on the bottom right side of this screenshot. They would click the blue training and events button and select a training to register for. There is always training offered on a continual basis so that they can do it whenever it's convenient to them. There's also specific staff training that DOT personnel that have a user account are able to access. I'm going to show really quick how to find that within the system. And you do have to be logged in to access it, just so you know. The contractors don't have to be logged in to access their system training, but users or staff users do have to. So, it's on the left-hand side under help and support. When you log in, everybody has these over here. So you click help and support, and then there's a bunch of different information here that you could look at, but the specific training classes that I'm talking about are under training classes. So if you click that, that'll take you up to this screen where you can register or RSVP for any of these different staff trainings. And just like the contractor training, they're always offered on a continual basis. And so you would just find one that you think would be beneficial for you, RSVP. It will give you an Outlook calendar reservation to put on your Outlook calendar with the link to join and everything. So it's really, really helpful. And then also, if you are just getting set up as a user and would like to schedule a brief Teams meeting with myself or Doug to go over like the basics of using the system, we can always do that as well. Once you start using the system, it is really easy to navigate and find the information that you are looking for. Moving on, last season was the first season we implemented our new commercially useful function form. The updated and much more extensive form was created as a result of a federal highway review of that process about 2 years ago. Last season, Jessica in our office reviewed every form submitted correctly through FileNet and CARS, as we receive an email notification when they are uploaded. Per the Federal Highway Review Corrective Actions, Civil Rights Division is required to make sure the forms are being completed, that they're completed correctly, and once verified, we have to sign off on the forms. There were quite a few forms sent back for revision last year, and we are hoping that won't be the case this year. If you are filling out the form and have questions, I urge you to contact Jessica or myself, and we will try to assist you so that you don't get an annoying message from us after you've uploaded it saying it needs to be revised. For the most part, forms were returned because they weren't complete. The first section of the form is just general contact information or contract information. Sections 1 through 5 must be completed for every DBE, no matter their type. The form has been updated to make that clear. Section 6 is broken out into subsections that only need to be filled out for that type of DBE. For example, if the DBE is a regular dealer supplier, you would only need to fill out that subsection in Section 6. You wouldn't even need to mark not applicable for the trucking, the 1-for-1 ratio, or the manufacturer subsections in Section 6. A couple specific reasons that forms were returned for revision last year include if the DBE is a supplier or trucking firm, they may not be required to submit certified payrolls through LCB Tracker. So in those cases, just select NA for those questions. Also, sometimes the data review was after the work was being done. That shouldn't be the case unless it is a regular dealer supplier. They are never on site or on site outside of regular work hours. There was 1 or 2 instances where it appeared as though the DBE filled out all or a portion of the form themselves, and the DBE is never to fill out the form. Project personnel should be completing the form. And then there was also a few instances where an older version of the form or the old versions of the form were submitted, and so those had to be sent back and asked to be refilled out with the most current version. So make sure you're using the most current version of the form. When it comes to regular dealer suppliers, you will likely need to call them to complete the form as they may not be on site themselves, as I mentioned. You may also need to request copies of documentation to verify that they are performing the different aspects of their certification required. The requirements for supplying materials as a DBE is outlined in the DBE special provisions on page 9 and 10. As long as they are not supplying items that would qualify as bulk items or specialty products, they must regularly keep stock of the items. If you question whether they stock the item, you can request pictures of current inventory. You may also request any invoices or other documentation that helps you to complete the form. We are currently in the process of updating our DBE directory, which can be found on the login page of the Certification and Compliance System, so that all DBE regular dealer suppliers include a list of materials they are currently certified to supply. This update will hopefully be completed within the next month or so. The purpose of that information to be posted publicly is twofold. First, so that primes know what they can utilize DBE suppliers for to count for participation on their projects. And secondly, so that project personnel can reference it when completing a CUF on the DBE if needed. On to replacement approval requests. Last season, I wasn't aware of any issues with replacement approval requests. Thank you for being diligent and completing them timely. In the event a change is made before the form is completed, it is still encouraged to have a form on file to document those changes. Last season, we did experience a couple instances where a DBE was no longer certified midway through working on a project. In that case, the form is not required, but is still encouraged to document the changes. The prime is not required to replace that firm that's no longer certified with another DBE, but documenting the change will alert me to update their subs on the contract in the certification and compliance system so that the payments are still properly reported. Federal Highway is currently conducting a review of our DBE attainment at award versus actual payments at the end of the project. One thing I have noticed so far while collecting data for them is a disconnect between the replacement for requests and updating the subs on the contract in the certification and compliance system. It is on my list of items to monitor, track, and update this season so that doesn't happen. If project personnel could also monitor this, I would greatly appreciate it. Lastly is the DBE weekly trucking report. I just want to reiterate that this form is only required to be completed by the DBE trucking firm and submitted to the project engineer weekly when the DBE trucking company is utilizing the 1-for-1 ratio. If you are unaware of what the 1-for-1 ratio is, there's a good explanation in the DBE special provisions on page 10. Basically, it is when a DBE trucking company subcontracts a non-DBE trucking company and is allowed to count any matched trucks as DBE as long as all the rules are being followed. The rules being that they have a legitimate subcontract with the non-DBE, meaning the prime or another company can't just provide matched trucks, and they will be required to report their payments to the non-DBEs in the certification and compliance system, something else that is being enforced and monitored more closely by civil rights this year.
The non-DBE trucks only count towards the DBE participation when the DBE trucks are also on site. So the DBE cannot send the non-DBE trucks up front and then come in later with their matched DBE trucks. This is where we need assistance with project staff to monitor on-site operations and make sure that it's being done appropriately. The DBE weekly trucking report should also reflect this information. If you are unsure if a DBE trucking firm is utilizing the 1-for-1 ratio, you can check that information either on the Form Cs in the DBE participation review packet or by looking at how they are set up on the contract in the certification and compliance system. I have screenshot an example on the next slide to show you what it would look like. So this screenshot is from a contract that was awarded from the January bid opening. They submitted 2 Form Cs where they're using DBE trucking companies. One is for Man Trucking and the other is for DKC Transport. On that form, there is a subsection, if they're utilizing the 1-for-1 DBE trucking ratio, that they have to identify any non-DBE company or companies that they're using, and then the number of trucks provided. So all that is highlighted in yellow on these forms. So that's where you would see it. And then within the system, I also screenshot this, the subs listed on this contract in the system, just to show you what it looks like. So DKC Transport is a DBE. It has the 2 green check marks that I mentioned earlier in the certified and included in gold columns. And then under DKC Transport is Circle C Enterprises, which is a non-DBE that they're using in the 1-for-1 ratio. It says they're not certified, which is accurate, but it also says that they are included in the goal because it's a 1-for-1 match. And that is a manual override that I have to do when the subs are being added to the contract so that the system counts the participation accurately. And then again, under Silver Star or Man Trucking, same company, they also have 3 non-DBEs listed under them in the same way so that we're counting it appropriately and all the rules are being followed where they have to report their payments. Okay, so just a couple items that came up last season. I'm probably forgetting some things, but that I had written down to mention at external civil rights training this year. One was a situation where Prime was paying a DBE by letting them keep materials they were hauling or other non-monetary ways. We checked with Federal Highway and that is not allowed just because then you're not really monitoring prompt pay. There's no funds exchanging for the work and everything. So a workaround for that, if that was the case, would be that the Prime just pay the DBE and then the DBE could use those funds that they were paid to purchase some materials. So it could still happen, just needs to be done appropriately and reported so that we can monitor that everything's being done appropriately. Another thing that came up last season was DBEs purchasing fuel from primes. It was just in question because DBEs do have to act independently by using their own equipment, employees, etc. So we were unsure if that was allowable, but after speaking with Federal Highway, they said that is allowable. DBEs may purchase fuel from primes if they choose to. And then lastly on here, I just wanted to mention that day-to-day operations don't fall under the prompt pay requirements. So examples for day-to-day operations would be purchasing tires for equipment, paying for items necessary to complete a subcontract like seed or erosion control, utility bills, etc. If a prime is paying a DBE's bills, this should be reported right away as the DBE isn't acting independently and we may have cause to remove their certification, but it's not something that would fall under prompt pay where we would get involved in the past due bills or whatever. So far in fiscal year 23, which is the October 1, 2022 through September 30, 2023 time period, through our bid openings, primes have committed to approximately $30 million in DBE dollars on federal aid highway construction projects. And there are still bid openings scheduled for the rest of the fiscal year. So this amount will likely only increase through the end of the fiscal year. This is the last fiscal year for our 2021-2023 triennial DBE goal, and I'm currently working on our new goal for the 2024 to 2026 triennial period. Last year, we were unsure if we would meet our goal, and if we didn't, there was a chance that Federal Highway would come in and make some changes to our program. Thankfully, we did meet our goal, and we look to be on track to meet our goal this year as well. I would like to finish the DBE portion of this training by stressing that follow-through of DBE oversight and reporting is important from the time the project is awarded until the time the project closes. We do rely heavily on project personnel to be that on-site enforcement and appreciate your commitment to making sure the program is compliant. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you ever have any questions or concerns regarding DBE requirements on your projects, as that's what I'm here for. And there's my contact information. That's the end of my DBE portion of my training. I'm going to move into OJT here. The OJT training program is a federal program designed to provide training on the project site for minorities, females, and economically disadvantaged persons to develop journey worker skills in the highway construction industry. The prime contractors are assigned OJT trainee positions based on federal highway dollars awarded to a contractor during the bid process. Although the trainees are assigned based on federally funded projects, the trainees may work on private, county, or other non-DOT projects. The trainees may be moved from project to project depending on the contractor's labor needs. It is very likely engineering staff may encounter OJT trainees on their projects, and the prime should make the project engineer aware if they intend to have a trainee working on the project. Training curriculum for OJT trainees includes power equipment operators, structural carpenters, concrete finishers, and truck drivers. The number of hours needed to successfully complete a training program may vary with the curriculum. Each trainee must have a trainer assigned to them that is on the job site with them every day that they are training. An OJT may spend part of the day or week training and another part completing tasks not associated with their training program. That is why oversight by project staff is crucial to ensure the hours reported as training are valid. The role of the project engineer for OJTs is minimal, but still crucial. If you have an OJT on your project, it is important that you're aware of who they are, what approved training program they are in, and when they are training versus when they are not, so that you can be aware that they are being trained appropriately. If you have any concerns regarding an OJT on your project, please contact me immediately. Our OJT Supportive Services Consultant, Wold Engineering, assists the contractor with recruitment and the trainee approval process, as well as monthly vouchers and any other areas that are needed or need to be addressed. The OJT Field Monitor, Bill Pritchard, completes 2 project site visits with the OJT trainee during the course of their training program. At each visit, Bill will talk with the trainee to determine how the trainee is being treated and trained on the job site, and he addresses any questions or problems the trainee may have encountered during their training program. The field monitor will also talk to the trainer, the job superintendent, and the project engineer. As project personnel, we ask that you make sure that Bill has access to the trainee in a quiet and safe environment. It is not appropriate for Bill to interview the trainee while they are operating equipment or while any of the prime contractor staff is also present and could potentially overhear their conversation. The contractor's weekly payrolls are monitored to determine the wages for each employee are accurate based on the wage rate included in the project proposal. Employees in the OJT program should be listed on the payroll as a trainee. OJT trainees have a minimum wage scale that must be used on all hours being counted toward their training program. These wages are incrementally 80, 85, and 90% of journey worker wage for a first-time trainee, and 85, 90, and 95% for a trainee taking part in a subsequent training program. The approved OJT goal for the 2023 construction season is 12 trainees to successfully complete an OJT program. OJT assignments were sent out to primes in early March, and I will be working with our OJT Supportive Services contractor to set up one-on-one meetings with each of them to go over program requirements and answer any questions they may have. As the trainee is assigned to a prime and not a project, that doesn't necessarily mean their trainee will be completing their program hours on a DOT project. However, it is always good to keep a line of communication open with the prime about their OJT trainees. In 2022, our goal was 14 trainees. 15 trainees were assigned to contractors, and there was one carryover position from previous years. 14 trainees completed the program, and 2 contractors will have a carryover assignment for the 2023 construction season. When a prime is unable to complete their assigned trainee positions, those positions carry over to the next year until they fulfill their obligations. It is in the interest of the prime as well as the trainee to successfully complete their trainee assignments within the current construction season they are assigned. As project personnel, we rely on you to ensure the trainee is being properly trained in their approved program and to contact myself or the OJT Supportive Services contractor right away if you have any questions or concerns. Even though we met our goal last year, our goal this year still decreased. The reason behind that is that we intend to analyze our trainee assignments with more scrutiny this season, focusing on the potential success of the trainees and not necessarily the quantity of the trainees. The construction industry has also had a hard time in recent years filling any open positions, let alone OJT positions. We are hoping to implement a reimbursement program for attending CDL training in the near future, as well as the industry has expressed a need for more qualified truck drivers. That is the end of my portions of the external civil rights training. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box or wait until the end and we will open up a live Q&A. Thank you for taking the time to attend this training, and don't hesitate to contact me this season with any DE or OJT related questions or concerns.
Okay, the last training for today will be LCP tracker training for project staff. The training topics: LCP tracker roles, supported browsers, LCP tracker support, announcements, project staff roles in LCP tracker, consultant training requirements, how to assign a new user, reassignment of projects, how to close or suspend a project, useful reports, violations, payroll, and onsite. The role of the prime approver or the prime contractor is to collect and approve payroll from all contractors and to work to correct any errors or deficiencies. All payrolls should be submitted weekly. The role of the project engineer is to verify and accept the payroll on a weekly basis from all contractors and to guide prime approvers in correcting any problems or deficiencies. The role of the subcontractor is to submit payrolls weekly to primes and be responsive to correcting errors. The role of LCP tracker is to provide support in the use of LCP tracker. And my role as the wage administrator is to provide guidance on NDDOT policy for DBRA wage issues and to provide administrative oversight on LCP tracker. Supported browsers. The browsers that you're able to use with LCP tracker are Microsoft Edge, Firefox, Google Chrome, and Opera. Internet Explorer no longer works with using the LCP tracker website. LCP tracker support. There are 3 ways to contact LCP tracker: phone, email, and also through live chat, which are located in this slide. And as you notice on the right-hand side there, it's that the support, live chat, and co-browser are highlighted. In many cases, I advise to call LCP tracker that is difficult to understand some of the issues the user is having, and the co-browse feature allows for the technicians at LCP tracker to guide the user through various functions and correct errors. LCP tracker now has a callback option if you not wish to be placed on hold. Lastly, the training tab at the top of the screen, highlighted in yellow, has step-by-step guides and videos on how to do every function in LCP tracker. I encourage everyone to look through these manuals, as most of the time you will be able to find what you're looking for here. Another item is on our civil rights homepage. I've also got have a LCP tracker manual for contractors and LCP tracker manual for project staff. They're also helpful tools to navigate LCP Tracker or use the program. This is an automatically generated email and will be received within a few minutes of the setup of your account. Your email will be your login, and you will receive a unique password that will have to be changed after your first login with the temporary password. For your awareness, contractors will use either their phone number or federal tax ID number to log into their account, and prime approver accounts will use their email. Contractor accounts are used to upload payroll, and prime approver accounts will be used to verify submitted payroll. Oftentimes, this is the same person, so these individuals will have two accounts to process payroll. If a contractor states that payroll has been submitted, but the project engineer is unable to view the payrolls for a given week, in most cases, the prime approver has yet to approve the payroll. Announcement page. An announcement might appear after login. Examples are a new manual located in the training tab, scheduled maintenance when LCP Tracker will be unavailable for use, or scheduled holiday closure of the help desk. Project staff roles in LCP Tracker. Administrative users at the NDDOT must be assigned roles and given designated accounts within LCP Tracker. The core management group for LCP Tracker are the full admins. These full admins will be the CRD director, IT manager for CRD, the DBRA wage administrator. Additionally, all assistant district engineers will be designated as full admins. This status allows the user the greatest degree of control of the system. The team leaders in most districts will be business managers assigned to a district. This status allows the user broad access to assign projects to project engineers, but generally within one district. Most NDDOT project engineers will be designated business managers, and these engineers can either be one, assigned to the district so they see everything, assigned not to a district but to a project or projects to limit what they see. Which of the above options to use is up to the assistant district engineer. Consultant engineers will each be assigned their own department. In this way, each consultant engineer can be limited in viewing only those projects to which the firm has won an award to oversee. The ADE or myself will be the ones that reassign projects to consultants if a district representative must also be assigned to a project in conjunction with a consultant firm. The project can be assigned to his or her account. Search for the individual to be assigned, and under their account at the bottom of the screen, type in the PCN and hit the assign project and then the save button. If you have any questions regarding this process, contact myself and I will assist. Consultant training requirements. To comply with FHWA, we have developed a new method of training documentation to ensure that all of the project staff working on NDDOT federally funded highway projects have received our civil rights training prior to commencing work as a project engineer. Each person tasked with managing and monitoring the civil rights requirements or accepting payroll will be required to register and view our training, as well as take a short proficiency exam when complete. Once a consultant, city, or county engineer has been assigned to a project in CARS, I will send an email notification of the assignment and verify in our database that he or she has completed our civil rights training and exam. After completion of the training, I will verify their account in LCP Tracker and provide notification. And I've also placed a link that's located in the email with the link to the training and the training and the proficiency exam. And this is just one of the items that I'm going to go over in the practical exam at the end of my training, but how to assign a new user. Those staff that have full admin rights are also able to create accounts and assign roles in LCP Tracker. How to reassign a project to a consultant. First, click on the Setup tab, then go to Add Edit Projects. type in the 5-digit PCN number in the box under the Show Pending list and select the new department or consultant under the department drop-down box. As a reminder, hit save at the bottom of the screen. How to close or suspend a project in LCP Tracker. First, click on the Setup tab, then go to Add, Edit Projects. Type in the 5-digit PCN number in the box under the Show Pending list and select the new status, either active, suspend, or closed under the Status tab. Hit the Save button at the bottom of the screen when completed. Active Projects List. To generate a list of active projects assigned to your district, click on the Reports tab, Active Projects List Report. Enter in your district with the date range and the list of all active projects will be generated. As a reminder, once all projects are complete and payrolls have been verified, please close the project. Enhanced Project Summary Report. I've been sending this out on a monthly basis to each of the districts. What this says is basically it's got information that's be a very useful tool to use to make sure that all payrolls are being submitted on time and that the project staff are accepting payroll on a weekly basis. So, but the first tab is who submitted the payroll. The second tab where it says date approved or approved by, that's the prime approver, and the date accepted is the project staff. And it's got some other corresponding information as far as payroll numbers, if it's a final, and then if there's any labor compliance interviews done during that time also. Now, if items are highlighted in red, that means that payrolls, that LCP Tracker is earmarked that payroll is being submitted late. So anything outside the normal range. So payrolls are from Sunday to Saturday at midnight. So anything that's submitted on that following Sunday, those payrolls are always going to be marked red. Multi-tier contractors and B accounts. So LCP Tracker does not allow for the same contractor to appear on multi-tiers or to be contracted to more than one prime or subcontractor. If a contractor has multiple subcontracts for the same project, they will need a B account. For the individual creating the account, use the existing contractor username, typically the telephone number, but put a capital B after the username and note B account in the name of the contractor. In this way, a contractor will actually have two accounts, but the B account will only be used when they are adding a second subcontract on the project. Clearing violations. So payrolls accepted in the system may contain warnings of possible violations or notices. You should clear your violations before you accept payroll. Go to the Violations tab and pull up your project. Each violation is listed separately. To understand the nature of the violation, hit View, which will pull up the payroll and go to the Notices section. And like I had mentioned, most notices will be Validation 52. If you see this notice, it does not mean the deductions are greater than the paycheck amount. Rather, it means that deductions are larger than expected. You typically see this violation where an amount is deducted for child support, wage garnishment, or because of advancement of employee pay. If you see Validation 52 notice, check the notes box or the certifications page. As long as the employer had indicated what the deduction was for, an amount, for example, $300 a week for child support, payback of an advancement, etc., this is adequate proof in the absence of a complaint. If there is no explanation, the violation cannot be cleared, and you should instruct the prime approver to ask the contractor to amend the payroll. If the violation is straightforward as the above example, all you need to do is hit resolve and put C notes, and then that violation will be removed. But all the Validation 52s need to be resolved. Fringes. A contribution is irrevocably made to a trustee or third party pursuant to a bona fide fringe benefit plan or program. The rate of costs incurred in providing bona fide fringe benefits pursuant to an enforceable commitment to carry out a financially responsible plan or program, which was communicated to the employee in writing. Examples are life insurance, health insurance, pension, vacation, holidays, sick leave, or other bona fide fringe benefits. Fringes can be figured as a percentage per hour or flat rate for each hour worked. The contractor does not have a defined benefits plan that they must pay their employees wages paid in lieu of fringes. Reviewing payroll. As many of you know, FHWA recently reviewed our certified payroll review process. It is important going forward that contractors are submitting and certifying their payroll on a weekly basis, and that the project engineers are reviewing and accepting payroll weekly, as well as identifying contractors that have not submitted payroll for a given week, while memory of the situation is fresh through project information, for example, inspection diaries, notes taken or observation while on the project site, and also labor compliance interviews. FHWA Form 1273 requires the contractor submit accurate and complete payrolls to the contracting agency every week for each week contract work is performed. To comply with requirements contained in 23 CFR 635.118, NDDOT must obtain accurate and complete certified payrolls and statements of compliance from the contractors. The NDDOT requires all contractors to use LCB Tracker when submitting weekly certified payrolls. Prime contractors are overall responsible for the submission of payrolls on projects, including those of subcontractors assigned. Project engineers should review all payrolls submitted on a weekly basis. Part of the payroll acceptance process is noting when either a prime contractor or subcontractor has failed to file payroll for time worked on a project. Project engineers should closely review project information, for example, project inspection diaries, labor compliance interviews, notes and observations when on the site of work to ensure that the prime contractor and subcontractors working on a project during a given week submit payrolls weekly. When missing payrolls are found to have occurred, the project engineer should work with the prime contractor to get payrolls filed, including payrolls for all lower tiered subcontractors assigned to a project in a timely manner. Where subcontractors fail to file payroll, a higher tiered contractor is just cause to withhold payment until payroll is filed. If a prime contractor fails to submit payroll weekly, the project engineer, after consulting with the ADE or team lead, has just cause to withhold progress payments until payroll is filed. Guidance regarding the withholding of payments to the prime contractor and subcontractors can be found in the North Dakota Standard Specifications for Road and Bridge Construction, Section 109.04, Progressive Payment. Reviewing payroll. Until the prime approver has approved payroll, it will not appear on the project engineer or team leader screen. Once approved, the project engineer or his or her staff will need to review and accept payroll. The first step to go to is the certifications tab and see payroll as not yet been accepted. Payrolls will appear on the certifications tab, but as submitted or resubmitted, you should go to the details section. When reviewing payrolls, remember DARA: details, audit, review, and accept. Hitting the details link will open up the payroll page. Look for missing or misclassified employees. If there are warnings, open up the payroll screen and see what the warning is for. The most common warning is for deductions exceed wage, which tells you that the system has highlighted too many deductions. In general, these are child support, wage garnishment, or loan repayment deduction. And that's how I had mentioned earlier in my training, that's validation 52. Next, you should audit at least one employee in each broad classification: a laborer, operator, a truck driver, or tradespeople. To do this, click on the audit button and review the payroll. When the payroll sheet for the employee opens, Check that the open hours fairly represent your knowledge of when the employee was present. Look at the fringes, make sure that the amounts are reasonable and that the deductions also appear reasonable. Check the notices and make sure that there are no notices on the payroll. All violations should have been taken care of by the prime approver at an earlier stage. You may need to verify that a warning is not valid. For instances, a warning about other deductions is likely due to child support or other garnishments. When you have completed your review, check on revalidate. When you have audited one worker in each classification, return to the certifications page. At this point, change the status of the payroll to accepted. Once accepted, your review of payroll is complete. You can proceed to the next payroll, or you are finished if there is no other payroll. If violations are seen in the payroll, work with the prime approver to get the errors corrected. This can be done via phone, email, or through the admin notice processing button on the admin tab. Non-performing payrolls. It's intended for contractors who are on and off projects and should not be filed throughout the off-season. A project should be placed in suspended status if there will be more work done the following construction season. If a contractor learns that a payroll will be their final week and did not indicate it as final on a previous payroll, the contractor can edit the payroll record under the Edit Certifications tab button and change to record to final. On-site interviews. Project staff should be using the on-site app if they have access to a mobile device. If a mobile device is not available, labor compliance interviews must be uploaded to LCP Tracker using the e-Documents tab. The on-site app is available for download in the Apple Store and also Google Play for Androids and is free of charge. Once the app is downloaded, you will have to sign in using your LCP Tracker login. The app will then prompt you to enter a 4-digit PIN. Now you can start your interview process. I will recommend before anybody's going out in the field that once they're in a Wi-Fi area and their device is connected to that, make sure that the app is updated and that the OS is the operating system on that device is also updated, or else you're going to have problems and you won't be able to conduct any interviews. Begin by selecting all of the appropriate information. The project, location, that should be only North Dakota statewide is available. Contractor, if not available, contractor must be added prior to the interview. Now this needs to be either done by the prime or myself can add those people, but they should, as soon as they are start working on a project, those contractors should be added to the LCP Tracker to that particular project. Worker should contain all employees on the project under the contractor. If not, he or she will have to be manually entered by using the small plus sign to sign the right of the drop-down menu. I will ask if you do have a worker that's not listed in their database of employees, that the name is entered properly, because that's where a lot of the errors come, because you have people with hyphenated last names or even a misspelling. They put the first name first and last name was mixed up. That could be an issue why this interview isn't processed. Hit start interview and the form will appear. The interviewee's name will have to be manually entered and the district or consultant info will also be entered. Now begin to complete the form by asking all questions in part B. As a note, the interview can be stopped and saved, but the signature of the person being interviewed will disappear if not completed. If after completing the interview and having the interviewee sign, the signature is deleted, put the just apps deleted sig and your initials in the box, then submit the form as you normally would. Parts C and D are for in-depth reviews. Choose a good cross-section of the contractor, female, minority, or lower wage employees for interviews. If you input an employee's name as opposed to selecting from the drop-down box, go to the admin tab and select clear on-site interviews. Once the CPR is submitted, you'll have the option of matching the employee with the payroll, and it will appear on the on-site tab on your LCP Tracker account. Some of the labor compliance interviews issues. So like I mentioned, a couple of them, operating system is outdated on device being used. It's important to have that updated before you go out and start conducting interviews. Sometimes deleting the app and reinstalling it hasn't been used in a while will allow the user to log in. You also have to make sure that that app is up to date. No functionality to upload and attach documents. No certified payroll for interviewees. Interviews using the wrong PCN, and just let me know and I will contact LCB Tracker to have them removed. And those interviews will have to be redone. Employees not set up an LCB Tracker. Any forgotten passwords, employees who need an LCB Tracker account or on-site account, please let me know. And then there's the on-site fact guide users guide under the training tab. Top of the screen in LCB Tracker is a good source of information. So I had mentioned earlier, so all interview status is something that we have to do better with in 2023. It's just when you conduct an interview, that isn't the end of the process. All interviews need to be reconciled. So after those interviews are submitted and they go through the process, they're in LCB Tracker and you can view them on the tab, and I will show you after we do our practical exam. Interviews need to be reconciled. So there's four different parts to an interview. So you either have auto validation fail, auto validation pass, submitted, and then manual override pass. So in order to get all those interviews to be reconciled, they either are auto validation pass or manual override pass. So auto validation fail is when you conduct an interview and an employee might not be familiar with his exact rate of pay because he's working on some different projects. And so when the interview is submitted into LCB Tracker and the system cross-references that particular CPR for that week and it's wrong, it's going to come up with auto validation fail. Submitted, it's always going to be in submitted status if there's no certified payroll to cross-reference the interview. So if you have an interview that's been in submitted for weeks and weeks, yeah, there's no CPR submitted. So it's good that you did an interview on that person, but they need to be referenced in that corresponding certified payroll report. And then manual override pass is when the incorrect information has been corrected and commented on, and then just click on manual override pass. And then that's the portion where you're going to enter in the correct information for the certified payroll report once you follow up with the correct wage for that particular individual. So all these interviews need to be reconciled properly, either an auto validation pass, which the system will automatically do that for you if the right totals were entered when the interview was conducted, or the manual override pass report. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to LCB Tracker. Then you're going to use the LCB Tracker Pro login. Enter your username. And then your password. And then click on North Dakota DOT B2G now. First item I wanted to highlight was the training materials tab, highlighted in yellow at the top of the screen. It's set up a little bit different than most people would know. It just recently got updated. So we hit on administrators. And then you have all different types of guides here, administrator user guide. And there's various different guides and guide you through LCB Tracker and there's different functions. And there's also a tab for contractors, as you noticed. Okay, I just wanted to go over the reports tab first. Active projects list. So it's down underneath the specialty reports. So just click on active project list. Enter in your department. And then if you wanted to look at a project that was that had been changed to a consultant, then you're going to have to look at that individually in another report, because the projects that are changed the department to a consultant, they will not fall underneath the parent department. So you're going to have to look at two different reports if you wanted to look at if a project underneath a consulting firm had been closed or if it was still active. You are going to have to look at two reports. Change the weekend date. I usually use from the time the project started until present, and then you're going to view report, and you can use an Excel, Word, or a PDF. Okay, so enhanced query project summary report. You're going to click on reports again at the top. You're going to go down to enhanced query project summary report. And then it's got a bunch of different drop-down boxes here. So you want to click either active or suspended. Those are the two, because you can look at all the payrolls from any projects that are active or suspended. Usually closed ones are already been, been finalized. So, and then change your department to whatever district, or if it's a consultant-led project, you can click on that consultant, and then the projects themselves will show up. And then you can either look at by district. For example, if I click on Bismarck District, then click over here, and all the projects underneath the Bismarck District are here. So like I had mentioned on the active projects list, if a project has been changed from, for example, the Bismarck District to a consultant, then you're going to have to run two different reports. So if I click on this project, for example, then I click on the contractor, this will be the prime, then the sub. You just click on this one that says prime contractor. And then you want to see all the notices. You also want to see all the accept status and if it's performing or non-performing, and then if it's a final or a non-final. Then, like I said, just go back to the date that the project was entered into LCB tracker. I'm just going to put a general date in here so you can see what kind of information this pulls up in view report. Okay. And then by clicking on this little disk, you can see it in different formats. For example, this report doesn't have any payrolls entered because it's a new report, new project. So. Okay. So now we're going to go over how to assign, how to close or suspend a project. So you hit the setup tab like I just did, go to add edit projects. And then I picked a project that's active right now. So 23853. Okay, so this project active. So, and if you want to close or suspend, you just have to click on go to the status of this project, hit close, for example. And then anytime that this box is highlighted in black, you're going to have to click over here, or else there might be a chance where if you start scrolling down using your mouse, that it might go to it might go to active or change from what you want it to be. And then you're going to hit the save button. Okay, next we're going to change the department. So it's the same spot. I just wanted to start from the beginning. So you hit setup, add edit projects. We're going to type in our project, the same one as before. And for some reason, like I said, if I missed this project in our process and I need to, and the district wants to change it to a different consultant, or you do it underneath the department. So for this one, I'm just going to use an example. I'm going to use Ackerman S-Fold Engineering. Like I said, it's highlighted in black, so you want to click over in the white portion of the screen and then hit save. Next thing I'm going to go over is on-site, which I had mentioned is an area of improvement. So we click on on-site. We want to filter by the PCN. Sometimes this takes a while. Project, you want to go to project code, project name code. And then we'll just click on a project and then you want to run the filter. Okay, so like you see, all these are auto validation fail. Those, the project engineer should go back in and correct that by entering in the correct totals from the CPR or contacting the contractor to find out what his exact, this particular person's pay was. And lastly, this is for those folks that are full admins. If there's someone that they need an LCP tracker account, they can either contact me also and I can do it. But you go to edit admins. You're going to enter the person's email, like for example, put my name in there, and we can just go from that portion. So you're going to enter the person's email, their name, what type of role they want, and then if there should be on-site user too, I would assume. And then you're going to pick by district, what district they want to be associated with. Most people are going to be business managers, I had mentioned before. And then you're going to hit save. Then they're going to get a generated email where they're going to have to create a password, their own individual password once they get that temp password. I recommend not copying and pasting the password. Manually type it into the computer once that screen pops up. Sometimes there's some issues with that. So that concludes the practical portion of my training for today. If you have any questions, you can now answer them in the chat or use the raise hand function.